Florida is going to press charges against an 18-year-old who had a same-sex relationship. Let's take a look.
One of the biggest stories trending on the Huffington Post today comes from Florida, where 18-year-old high school senior Kaitlyn Hunt is fighting expulsion and criminal charges for a lesbian relationship with another student. Kaitlyn has been charged with 2 felony counts of, quote, lewd and lascivious behavior on a child 12 to 16 after the parents of her 15-year-old girlfriend pressed charges earlier this year. Kaitlyn Hunt's mother, Kelly Hunt Smith, insists that the girls had a mutually consenting relationship and alleges her daughter's accusers never mentioned they had a problem with the lesbian relationship. In a statement posted to Facebook, Kelly Hunt Smith says, quote, "They were out to destroy my daughter. They feel like my daughter made their daughter gay." Nearly 40,000 people have signed a petition calling on the Assistant State Attorney Brian Workman to drop the case.
All right, so what I found fascinating about this story is they were dating when Kaitlyn was 17 years old. There didn't seem to be a problem then. But as soon as she turns 18, the parents of Kaitlyn's girlfriend go to the authorities, and she's facing charges, criminal charges, including lewd and lascivious acts. So, I mean, they are going to destroy her life if she does get convicted of this. And she's been offered a plea deal, which includes 2 years of house arrest, and she will be on probation for a significant amount of time. And she will be listed as a sex offender for the rest of her life. Now, Desi, what do you think is really going on here? Is this really about statutory rape, or is it more about same-sex relationships?
Oh, I think you're right that it's ideologically motivated. That the parents of the teenager in question that they are against homosexual marriage and against homosexuals existing at all, and they wanted to lay in wait essentially until she turned 18 so that they could then go after her and ruin her life because they disagree with who she is. And I don't think that this case should have gone through at all. I think this is very close to being a prosecutorial misconduct case because while there isn't a whole lot of case law, I would imagine, about same-sex relationships and whether that's statutory rape, we're probably going to find out a lot more of these. But I think that the parents and the prosecutors are probably pursuing this case in order to make ideological points and to punish people for being gay.
So, Peter, go ahead, jump in.
Just wanted to jump in. It's not, we've seen this before. The ACLU has seen this issue before of rules that give, whether it's prosecutors or school administrators, broad discretion to enforce against the romantic and sexual activities of kids, get used against same-sex relationships. So whether it's this case or actually our office recently sent a letter to a school district that was enforcing the anti-PDA rules in the school, preferentially against same-sex couples. So, while heterosexual couples are pawing each other in the hallway, same-sex couples who are holding hands or giving a peck on the cheek would be disciplined.
But it's also been used in other states for interracial relationships. Remember, there was a case a couple of years ago of some 18-year-old student who, once he turned 18, he was a black student and he had a white girlfriend, and they went after him when they didn't go after other students who were the same race for the same thing.
You don't see even enforcement of these laws. There's no question about that. But I actually want to have a broader discussion about what happens when you have 2 teenagers. Let's say one is 16 and one is 17, and then one of them turns 18, the older one, and then the parents can press charges for statutory rape, and then that person can be listed as a sex offender for the rest of their lives. I mean, are our sexual assault and rape laws so cut and dry that people can't make human judgments about these situations?
Well, I mean, that is a problem. I mean, these laws criminalize and impose the draconian penalties that you talked about earlier. Conduct that, whether parents approve of it, is fairly common among kids, and it's really a matter that should be handled by kids and their parents and school officials where necessary, and not by the criminal justice system. I mean, certainly there are rights in our Constitution to basic bodily autonomy and to the way that consenting adults relate with one another, and those rights do extend to some extent to children too. And so there's a real concern when these laws exist and criminalize just ordinary romantic relationships.
What's amazing is the plea deal doesn't sound like a plea deal at all. I mean, being listed as a sex offender for the rest of your life destroys your future. I mean, you can't work anywhere near a school, you can't live anywhere near a school. I mean, it's going to impact her life negatively forever. And she's doing something that, as we've already said, Many teenagers do. I mean, when I was 16, my boyfriend was 18. If my parents didn't like him, they could press charges against him and he would spend time in jail and he would have to register as a sex offender. I don't agree with those laws. It's stupid. We have to use some human judgment.
Right, but that's also why this is about a same-sex relationship very clearly, because as we've all said now, the parents did nothing. They literally waited until this girl's birthday when they knew then they could get the law enforcement involved. So, you know, the fact that we've become such a litigious, is that a word?
Yes,
litigious society, that's part of the problem here. It's part of the problem that we still are having, and Florida has like a huge amount of anti-gay laws that we're still dealing with that kind of stuff. But clearly, just having the arbitrary date that, okay, on this day it was okay, but tomorrow it's not. I mean, it really is crazy, and no one thinks this girl is a sexual predator or.
These laws were intended to protect, you know, teenagers and children from, you know, statistically speaking, we know that it's actually much older men that prey upon teenage girls, you know, statistically speaking. So the idea that these laws were supposed to protect teenagers and children does not necessarily translate to them being applied equally to everyone. And so when they have this kind of broad issue that they're able to be applied unequally and according to ideological preferences so that they can be used to punish people rather than to protect people. You know, we have this more awareness is useful in this case, but I think we also have to have, you know, better trained prosecutors and more active Department of Justice to prevent this from happening.
What happened to just basic civility in parenting? Like, forget the same-sex part of this for a second. If you had a kid and they were doing something you didn't want them to do with another kid that you knew about in the neighborhood, maybe you would talk to the parents. These people deliberately did not do that so that they could get the legal system involved.
And
so
the prosecutor helped them.
And
That's
the
what gets me.
prosecutor
The
helped them.
prosecutor is helping them at this.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, there are numerous groups that are rallying in support of Kaitlyn. Anonymous is one of them, and you do not want to mess with Anonymous. I'm not saying I'm in favor of vigilante justice, but they did great things when it came to the rape in Steubenville, Ohio.